Welcome to the Deep Dive. You guys sent in some really interesting stuff this time around. We're talking about the future of healthcare, AI, and even some personal stories from Tony Robbins himself. We've got excerpts from a YouTube interview featuring Tony Robbins, Marc Andreessen, and Dr. Vijay Pande. Should be a fascinating deep dive.
Yeah, what's so interesting here is how everything's converging. You've got cutting-edge technology, the evolving world of healthcare, and the undeniable power of the human mind. All these themes are intertwined, and you can't help but wonder, what does this mean for our well-being?
Right, and it's personal for Tony Robbins. He kicks things off talking about this snowboarding accident. He had a serious rotator cuff tear and nerve damage. Doctors were saying surgery, months of rehab, a whole 9 yards.
And this is where it gets interesting, right? Robbins was already intrigued by stem cell research, but he runs into this wall access.
He couldn't get the treatment he wanted here in the U.S.
Exactly, because of regulations.
Right.
So he ends up going to Panama. He gets a treatment using 4-day-old stem cells from an umbilical cord. It's pretty cutting-edge stuff.
And he claims it was a huge success. Pain gone, shoulder feels great, and follow-up MRIs show no sign of the injury.
Amazing. Right, a complete turnaround in just 4 days. But it raises a big question. Why aren't these treatments easily available here? It seems like medical tourism is becoming more and more common.
That's a good point. Makes you wonder what's going on with the FDA and all these new therapies.
Well, both Robbins and Dr. Pande, who leads Andreessen Horowitz's biofund, talk about that. The FDA has to balance so many things. You have to make sure treatments are safe and effective, but you also want to give people access.
It's a tough situation. But Robbins doesn't just stop at physical interventions. He's a huge believer in the power of the mind, specifically the placebo effect.
Yeah, he brings up all these studies showing that even a sugar pill can have a big impact if the patient believes it's a powerful drug.
It's pretty crazy how much our thoughts can influence our bodies.
Totally. It's this whole field called psychoneuroimmunology. Basically, your thoughts and emotions directly affect your immune system. It's like your mind is talking to your body.
Wow, that's fascinating. So our mindset can really impact our health in profound ways.
Robbins even tells this wild story about a mass psychogenic illness. Happened at a sporting event. Someone made a false announcement, and it caused widespread panic and physical symptoms.
Seriously, that's incredible. Imagine if we could learn to harness that power intentionally for healing and well-being. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, and he brings up this study by Dr. Ellen Langer, where seniors experienced physical improvements just by living in an environment that reminded them of their younger years. They essentially turned back the clock just by shifting their perception of time.
That's amazing. It seems like we have so much more control over our health than we realize.
Absolutely. We're not just passive bystanders. Our mindset plays a big part in shaping our reality and our health.
And that kind of leads to a larger societal discussion that Robbins and Andreessen get into, the rise of what they call victimhood culture and this entitlement mentality.
Right, and they argue that those trends are actually harmful to personal growth, to innovation, even to our overall well-being. They advocate for a totally different approach. Personal responsibility, purpose-driven work, contributing to something bigger than yourself, things like that. It's not just about living longer, it's about those years you're living, like living well. And Robbins is really into this whole thing about energy, like optimizing your energy level.
Blood sense, right. If you don't have energy, you can't really do anything.
Exactly. It's foundational. And he talks about how we often neglect the basics, like hormones, sleep, getting the right nutrition. He thinks these are the keys to unlocking this next level of performance, both physically and mentally.
So it's not just like having a little more pep in your step.
No. He's talking about tapping into this real vitality. It's about fully experiencing life, pursuing your passions, making a real impact on the world, which kind of brings us back to that whole purpose thing that kept coming up.
Right. Both Robbins and Andreessen seem to believe that purpose is this key ingredient for well-being. And it's not just some abstract idea either.
Yeah, they're not just being philosophical about it. They see it as a basic human need, something that directly impacts our health and even how long we live.
What's interesting is that they're both a little skeptical of this whole future where technology does all the work for us.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be all for it, right? But they seem to believe that work, when it's aligned with your passions and values, is a powerful source of purpose.
So even with AI and automation changing the job market, they think there will be new opportunities to contribute. maybe even more meaningful ways to contribute.
They really stress being adaptable, continuously learning, being open to new challenges. And Robbins actually shares this really inspiring story about his work with Feeding America.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. It shows his commitment to tackling food insecurity and his belief that we can create a world where everyone has access to basic necessities.
That's awesome. It is kind of cool how technology can amplify our compassion. It can give us the tools to make the world a better place. But I did notice they also had some concerns, like about some of the trends happening in society today.
Yeah, they talk about this rise of victimhood culture, this tendency to blame others for our problems, this sense of entitlement. They see it as a real obstacle, like to personal growth and societal progress.
So what are they suggesting?
They're basically saying we need to take a step back, question our assumptions, take ownership of our lives, and, remember that we have the power to make choices that shape our future.
It's interesting how their critique of universal basic income kind of highlights this clash of ideologies.
Hmm.
On one hand, you can see the good intentions behind the idea.
Sure, but they argue that providing a guaranteed income without the expectation of work or contribution could have negative consequences, maybe even unintended consequences.
So they're worried it might discourage people from finding fulfilling work.
Right, and foster this culture of dependency, which could diminish our sense of purpose. They're looking for solutions that empower people to contribute and find meaning, not just a safety net.
It's definitely a thought-provoking perspective. It kind of challenges this whole idea that a life of leisure is the ultimate goal.
They seem to believe that we're wired for purpose, for striving, for creating. Maybe a world without challenges wouldn't actually be that great for us.
Whoa, that's deep. So, as technology keeps changing things, the real question is, what would it mean to live a meaningful life?
Will we embrace the freedom and opportunities, or will we just kind of, I don't know, get complacent? It seems like this is a choice that's going to have a big impact on what happens in the coming years.
No pressure, right?
Haha.
Yeah.
But seriously, Robbins and Andreessen paint this picture of a future where technology helps us reach our potential. A future where we're healthier, happier, and making a real difference.
But they're not saying it's going to just magically happen.
Exactly. We have to be active participants, cultivate resilience and adaptability, and rediscover that inherent sense of purpose, that comes from contributing our talents to the world.
And then, just as we're wrapping things up, Robbins throws in this little teaser about his upcoming book on investing, The Holy Grail of Investing. It's about private equity and alternative investments.
Which, when you think about it, totally ties back into that theme of empowerment, taking control of your destiny.
He's encouraging us to be as proactive about our finances as we are about our health.
It fits their personalities, right? Both Robbins and Andreessen are all about challenging the status quo, finding new ways to create value, pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's been quite a journey. From stem cell tourism and the placebo effect to societal trends and universal basic income. This conversation has given us a lot to think about.
It really has. It feels like we've gone everywhere. Stem cell research, the power of the mind, even like alternative investing. But through it all, there's this message of taking control of your health, of your future.
Yeah, but one of the biggest things I'm taking away from this is this idea of being proactive. Whether it's looking into new treatments, building a stronger mindset, or taking charge of your finances, it's like they're saying, don't wait for things to happen. Go make them happen.
Exactly. And it all comes back to this, right? This convergence of technology, healthcare, and human potential. It's all connected, and it's creating these amazing possibilities.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what does this mean for our listeners out there? I think the most important thing is to approach your health, both physically and mentally, with that same proactive energy.
Right. Be open to exploring new technologies and treatments, but also cultivate that resilient mindset, that sense of purpose, that drive to contribute to something bigger than yourself. Remember, your health is the most valuable thing you have. You have the power to protect it.
And on that note, here's a final thought to leave you with. As AI and these other technologies keep advancing, how will they impact our sense of purpose and meaning? Will we find new ways to find fulfillment and contribute to this crazy world? Something to think about as you continue your own deep dive into these topics.